Hey, you got me in the middle of a dish here. Welcome back to Cooking with Dave. What I'm doing tonight, I don't know why I keep saying goodnight. It's perfectly light outside, so what I'm doing this afternoon is I'm making a chicken cacciatore. And it's almost like a peasant food. It's a very simple dish to make, and the reason why I got kind of started before I got started with the video is that I wanted to get these vegetables kind of browned up a little bit. And if you pan in here, what I have is garlic, red bell pepper, I have red and yellow onion, and then one of my favorites is I do a lot of cooking with is the Italian sweet peppers. There's a couple of different colors in here. So now that I've got them where I want them, in terms of how caramelized they are, I'm going to pour in the wine. I have no affiliation with this. This is a Portuguese Vinho Verde, which is a very dry wine, which is something that you want. You don't want a fruity wine in this. You want something that's very dry. It calls for 3/4 of a cup. And what we're going to do is we're going to pour this in. It's going to bubble a little bit. I'm going to turn the heat up just slightly. It asks for 3/4 of a cup. You ready for 3/4 of a cup? Here it comes. And it's 3/4 of a cup, about right there. And you're wondering, Dave, you're pouring the wine into the pan. What about the cooking wine? It's right here. You guys, come on. What do you think I forgot? Don't be crazy. Let me get a little drink here. I'm parched. It adds for a little bit of wine, and now we're going to put in a little bit of chicken stock. Same amount, about 3/4 of a cup. It's about right. Something like that. I don't, like Julia Childs. You ever watch Julia Childs on television? She never measured anything. And much like myself, that woman was soused about half the time that she was running through most of her cooking shows. So now what we're going to do is we're going to bring this to a boil. And while this boils, I'm going to tell you a little story about cooking wine. And where cooking wine actually came from was years ago, I was working in the seafood industry in South San Francisco, and the owner's daughter came in one afternoon and she asked if we could find a chef to do in-house dinner parties at her boyfriend's house. And he was a local cardiologist. He had a firm there in San Mateo, was where I was living. And so I looked around, and I couldn't find any chefs that were reasonably priced. So I told her, I said, you tell your boyfriend I'm pretty handy in the kitchen. I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll come in, I'll do the dinner parties, but here's the stipulation. I'm not going to do all this cooking and then not be able to sit down at the dinner table and enjoy it with everybody. Well, the long and the story short was I did numerous parties with them. I also traveled out of the country with them as a couple, and after they got married and had children, I traveled out of the country with them quite a while. But that's kind of getting detract from what the cooking wine story was all about. So the first or second time that I did a dinner party in his home, I'd gone up to the house, and he was there, and I was doing the prep in the afternoon and getting things ready and chopping and doing all that stuff. And I asked him, I said, I need some wine for cooking. And he goes, oh, really? And he had a very extensive collection of wine. He goes, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to put it like in a sauce or something like that? I go, hell no. I'm going to open the bottle and I'm going to drink this wine while I'm cooking. And that's how cooking wine became to what it is. All right, so getting back to the dish now. I know that was a funny little story. Now, wasn't it? My wife is laughing. She loves it when I make little jokes. So what we're trying to do is we're going to reduce this down to about half of what we started with. As you can see, if you had smell-o-vision right now, would smell really, really good. All right, so now we've got that just about where I want it. I'm going to kind of put this in a little bit early. This liquid will evaporate out because we don't want to be here until tonight, midnight. I'm sure you people don't want to be watching me. You know, it's like watching bowling, you know. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add in the chopped tomatoes. I cheated on these chopped tomatoes. I'm using a can, it's a 28-ounce can of chopped tomatoes. We're going to add that in. We're going to turn the heat up a little bit because we're going to want to bring this up to a bit of a boil. We're going to mix that in just like this. Now this dish calls out for capers. I don't have any capers. You know those capers, it's a capers. It's kind of a fun thing to say. It's kind of like bok choy, capers. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna bring this to a simmer. Because the chicken's gonna be added right back in and we're gonna put it right on top and then we're gonna let it sit on top of the stove for about 30 to 40 minutes. Earlier what I did is I went and I browned the chicken. This chicken, what you do to start with is you take it, you salt, pepper it, then dip it into flour, dredge it in flour, and then fry it in olive oil or brown it in olive oil. What I did, what I like to do, this is a little bit different, this is our handy friend here called bacon. And what I did was I took about 4 or 5 pieces of bacon and I rendered it for the fat. I like to cook with bacon, one, because I like the flavor, and second, that it actually browns a little bit, the meat a little bit easier, a little better, because it has a higher burning content, or fat to it, or I'm going to say that wrong. It has a higher burning temperature to it. As you can see now, we're starting to get this thing to a boil. And what I'm going to do now is after I brown the chicken, what I'm going to do is, because it calls out for capers, and I don't have any capers, because it's one of those things, it's like cilantro and like other a lot of things. You go to the grocery store and say, hey, don't forget to have capers, and then you walk out of the store and you're on the way home and you're going, damn it, I forgot the capers. So what I'm going to add in is something a little bit different. I'm going to add in, I have green and black olives. I'm going to add them in whole, because I like the wholeness of cooking. I like the way that it looks in the dish. I probably could use a few more olives than that, but that's going to be what we're going to do tonight. Along with that, we're going to add in some fresh oregano that I picked this afternoon from the garden. You can use fresh, or you can use a dried. So I'm going to turn this down now that we got it to the boil that I was looking for. I'm going to keep mixing that in. It calls out for a little bit of salt at this point. I'm not going to put that in because I don't want to over salt it. But I am going to put in a little bit of this fresh pepper. You don't want to get too crazy with pepper in the cooking stages of a dish. Because pepper actually it can translate into be fairly bitter on the end. So you want to just put a little bit for some flavor in there. And now Mr. Chicken is going to go back into the dish, and we're going to set it right on top, just like that. And we're going to just make sure that everything has a little spot. We don't want to crowd the chicken inside the dish. That's why I have a pretty good sized pan. You know, chicken when you're cooking like this, it likes a little social distancing. So we're going to do that. My bride's laughing at me now. She's going, are you going to tell those corny jokes all afternoon? All right, so the chicken is almost in there. It looks like we're going to have a little bit of crowding in here, but I think we got it in pretty good. I pulled out the biggest cast iron pan that I had to do this job, and I want to thank one of my old neighbors. He had this dish, and he wasn't using it, and I asked him if I could have it. And so, Mr. Jones, thank you very much for the dish.
Pan,
dish, whatever they call those things. Jesus, you know, it's just impossible to get these videos done these days. Now not only is she the camera person, now she's the critic. But I love that woman, I'm telling you. So now what we'll do is we're going to let that set just like that. Kind of let it turn it over a little bit so that some of these pieces all have a little bit of juice to them. Those will let rest a little bit. I'm going to turn this down, and if you'll come back out a little bit. What I'm going to do with this dish is I'm going to let it simmer here for about 35 to 40 minutes. I'm using a whole chicken. Some of these recipes call out for only thighs and legs. I'm using the whole chicken because, as I said before, my bride likes more of the breast meat. I like more of the darker meats. So what I'm going to do is, at about 30 minutes, I'm going to pull the breast out. I'm going to let the legs and the thighs sit in. I probably will pull the wings out at the same time as the breast and let them sit for a little while. Then when I get done with this dish, with the chicken, I'm going to pull all the chicken out The sauce may be a little bit on the thin side. If it's thick, then leave it alone. If it's not, what we're going to do is I'm going to skim as much of the chicken fat off the top. And then what I'll do is I'm going to maybe add a little bit of cornstarch and water into it to thicken it. But if you go ahead and turn the heat up, once you remove the chicken, the sauce will reduce down, it'll thicken right up. Then you can take the chicken, add it back in, and or what you do is go directly to the plate and then pour the sauce over the top. I plan to do a little bit of spaghetti with this afternoon, so I'm going to boil some spaghetti. The sauce is going to go on top of the spaghetti. The chicken is going to be on the side of the plate, and then I'm going to sprinkle fresh basil over the top of it and a little bit of fresh cracked pepper. I'll take some pictures of this dish when we get done because I can't stop a video and then restart it. And then I'll also post the link to the recipe that I use with this. This is Giada de Laurentiis, something, whatever, some Italian name that I can't pronounce, obviously. And she's on the Food Network. She does a really great job with lots of things. I like the way that she cooks. Usually it's fairly rich. This isn't a rich dish at all. As you can see now, the dish is now starting to bubble just nicely. I'm going to turn the heat down just a little bit more because now what I want to do, I want this chicken to cook slow. The faster it cooks, kind of the tougher it gets. So with me, you know, I'm not that guy that likes to speed cook. You know, I'm not a pressure cooker guy. I'm not that Instapot guy. I'm a slow cooker guy because that's the way you get the best flavors out of meat. I want to thank you for tuning in. Everybody, you know, I've had a lot of positive feedback from y'all. I really do appreciate that. We're safe from the fires. It looks like we are getting kind of a handle on it up here. It's a little bit smoky outside still, but it's certainly a lot better than last week when we got to the warning and then we decided to leave town. But I want you to stay safe. Thanks for tuning in. Cheers to you. Peace out.